to say a huge thank you to Amy for doing this tonight. As I mentioned earlier, she's not feeling very well, so this is very kind of her to do this. So thank you, Amy.
No, thank you. No problem.
It is much appreciated. It's very kind of you. So over to you, Amy.
So as Adam said, so I'm a teacher of science in a school in Harlow, Passmores Academy, and the Secretary on a Society. So I'm just going to talk about inclusivity from an education perspective through the duration of a pandemic and what we took from that as we sort of got back to a normal, which will never be the same again. So when schools closed last March, for many young people, it was not just a closure of their access to a fair education, but it was their access to a safe space, routine, support and opportunities to develop a host of social and emotional skills. Last year, students lost on average a third of their time in school. Although remote learning quickly became the norm, it was a very poor replacement, and 71% of state school children received 0 or less than 1 daily online lesson. And I could tell you it was a very, very tricky thing to deliver. In higher education, 100% of university students studied partially online, with a generally negative review initially on access to lectures, tutorials, and certainly value for money. For students from better off or advantaged families, they spent 30% more time on home learning compared to those from less well-off families. Socially advantaged parents felt more able to support their children in learning. For students who are by definition disadvantaged, they were much less fortunate. To be disadvantaged, a student must tick one of the following criteria. You should have qualified for a free school meal in the last 6 years. You're a child who is looked after by a carer, or you have a parent in the armed forces. In the UK, that applies to approximately 28% of pupils. Since the first lockdown, the number of pupils eligible for free school meals rose by 420,000 students to 1.74 million. And of course, many areas of Essex felt that strain. The school I work in sits just above the national average for disadvantaged students and nearly 3 times that of SEN needs, which is special educational needs. So some may further consider those have their disadvantages in the education system. You can further consider that to be disadvantaged in lockdown, it means that you just don't have a space to study because you share a bedroom with 1 or more siblings. It might be that you needed to help parents manage being at home unexpectedly, who are out of work and trying to cover bills, or even that you're caring for younger siblings or your parents. And certainly that's not unique to the school I work in. There's many students who look after their parents as carers. So to be disadvantaged simply means that the young person doesn't start at the start line of the race, but they're always paces behind. And to support these disadvantaged pupils means levelling the playing field and meeting the students where they are in order to access a fair education. The response to COVID was very clear, as outlined in the media. It meant that live lessons were delivered from schools, and as at the end of last year, 1.3 million plus laptops or devices were delivered to support education in local authorities, further education schools and trusts. And just under 80,000 wireless routers were provided for internet access. It's still hard to believe that people don't have their own internet access. Many colleagues, including myself, delivered these laptops and dongles to students across the country. And it meant that instead of having to sign in on their PlayStation and Xbox, they could log in and access their online learning. And I could say that we're extremely grateful to receive these. Although COVID brought disadvantaged students physical access to a laptop with internet, it didn't increase their digital literacy overnight. It didn't increase their parents or carers, and certainly it didn't upskill teachers to teach live lessons or remote education effectively. For myself, I consider myself lucky because I was in an early stage of my teaching career where I felt as if teaching every day was a brand new challenge. So online teaching and providing lessons was just another day as an early teacher, a career teacher. So I was adapting to different situations every day. For other teachers with experience of 10 to 30 years, online lessons and the additional workload to support hybrid learning was met with apprehension and certainly opposition to their tried and testing teaching styles, and rightly so. It furthermore meant the schools very quickly took on systems that they already had and adapted them as best they could. And we have continued to use those because that's what we understand. But is it necessarily the best way to provide certain hybrid solutions in schools? Universities even moved exams online using eye movement technologies via webcams to ensure students couldn't chat on their timed assessments. Okay, so closing the gap has been a national agenda for many years, and COVID has only exacerbated this gap for our young people. Disadvantaged students lost out on far more than a laptop can provide them, but it was a start to providing them access. So how can we turn this around, harnessing digital technology to deliver an integrated scientific, digital and creative education fit for today's economy without these downsides? Here's just a few ideas or things that came up from lockdown and our adaptations in education from my perspective. So to embrace the digital wins, we found during lockdown is necessary. That means utilising the systems that allowed us to share resources and information more easily, and we're certainly doing that. Using a more streamlined and sharing a best practice across schools to make them as effective as possible in using these platforms. Moving assessments online in a longer term, certainly higher education, could be beneficial for all walks in our education. Completing an exam safely remotely on a computer, although it means we're reducing that physicality of putting pen to paper, surely it matches the skills of trying to access the working world and equips us to book an online GP appointment. Though young people are the most digitally most digital generation, not necessarily digitally literate, their use of technology is dominated by smartphones, which allows for educational platforms that are limited to recall and retention. iPads are a better step in terms of using platforms. However, they're not robust enough to be used in schools. So I propose, and many others too, that every student is equipped with a laptop device in school, so we can incorporate effective teaching strategies, user resources, and access online information, really embedding that across the curriculum. That means that learning providers who set up videos and online worksheets are challenged in the way that they develop those and provide those, and the way they include all types of students in that. So, for example, a simple idea is just if we inform students that they could use a read aloud function on their web browser, that might support SEN students with those needs more easily. There's a vital need to invest in the upskilling of educators and the educated through schools, working closely with communities and the families in them, particularly those in disadvantaged areas. And in summary of the above, inclusion in a school encompasses social, physical and financial barriers, anything that may cause a student to have additional hurdles before they enter the school building. So there's plenty that can be and will be taken from our experiences and perspectives during lockdown, and those above are simply a start to the conversation. So thank you for listening, and obviously we're going to hear about those outcomes and summaries from Adam at that Spotlight event. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Brilliant. Yeah, and actually, can I just say from a personal note, as I said to Gary and Peter the other day, that's the first time I've been able to watch your presentation without having to do something else in the background. Really good, really interesting, and I think really highlights some of the challenges we face there, which our delegates went on to discuss. So thank you, Amy, and thank you for making your time available this evening when you're not feeling so well. So thanks. Hope you're feeling a bit better.
Brilliant. Thank you.